90% of our nation's children are in the public schools. And because so many of us as believers have opted to school our children in other ways, what that means is that a huge amount of salt and light has departed from the public schools. As a result, you can imagine what's going on in our public schools. Just last week, I sat down with a kid who said, "Hey, Mr. Schmoose, please pick me up the other night. I was cutting myself on the edge of a cliff by the ocean, getting ready to jump off, and I don't see any point to life." And that was just last week. We can go on and on about the problems in our public schools. And as I see it, the church has two ways we can respond to the crisis in the public schools. One way, as I see it, is by adopting schools and by churches intentionally reaching out into the public schools. I love an example of that, what's happening up in Portland, Oregon, under the leadership of Luis Palau and his son Kevin. They essentially went to the mayor, an openly gay mayor of Portland, and said, "Mr. Mayor, we're tired of being perceived as being against things, when the reality is we are far more for things than against them. What can we do to serve this city?" They did a makeover of Roosevelt High School, the toughest inner city school in Portland. They began volunteering to the point where about 6 months later, the principal said to the outreach pastor of the church, get this, "Christine, you're here every day of the week with volunteers. Why don't you have an office here?" So now for 5 years, a full-time staff member of the church has had an office at Roosevelt High School. We are mentoring every kid in the freshman class. The graduation rate has climbed by 15 percentage points. Then our school superintendent, who happens to be a very prominent member of the gay and lesbian community, came and said, "We want you to find a church partner for every school in the Portland public school system." A second way I think we can come alongside the public schools is to send missionaries in to the public schools. From the moment I started public school teaching 15 years ago, that's how I've seen myself. I was at church one night and I was sitting in the pew after night service by myself, and I asked the Lord, "Is this your will for me? Do you want me to apply for this position?" And frankly, I had mentally probably already packed my bags. And I was surprised by the Lord's response. You know how people say that when you have a near-death experience, your life flashes before your eyes? Never had that, thankfully, but I have had this experience. When I said, "Lord, should I pursue this position?" all my students I had flashed before my eyes. And at that point, it was only about 300 or so. But all of them in a moment, all of them right there, their brokenness, the joy, all the good and the bad, all that I had lived out with them, all of a sudden was right before my awareness. And it wasn't an audible voice, but as clear as I've known anything, the Lord spoke into my heart and he said, "They are like sheep without a shepherd." They're like sheep without a shepherd. And I was undone. I wept right there in the pew. If we don't learn to cultivate this sort of two-way relationship with God, I'm just not sure we can really live out what he has for us. The founding pastor of the church I attend, he has a saying. He says, you know what, faith is spelled R-I-S-K. Faith is spelled R-I-S-K. If we ever want to do something significant in the kingdom, significant for our own walk, significant in any way in the Lord's eyes, it's going to involve risk. And those might be small risks, it might be big risks, but it's going to involve risk. Young-hee Cho, the pastor of the largest church in the world in South Korea, was once asked, "Hey, what is the secret of your success?" And he said, "It's very simple." Not that it's easy, but it's very simple. He said, "I pray and I obey. I pray and I obey." Yeah, there are laws. Okay? But let me tell you some of the things that public school teachers can do that are perfectly within the law. We can answer questions about our faith from students. We can answer them openly and honestly. We can pray with other faculty members. We can sponsor Christian clubs. We can partner with churches like I read about. We can sponsor good news clubs. Teachers can, in their classrooms, have a Bible study after school. Those are all things that teachers can do legally. So by the afternoon, my student Nick, who also struggled with behavior issues, stood up and said, "I can't take it anymore from the people at my team. I'm going to next door to get some prayer from Alan." Try not to laugh, I said, "Absolutely, Nick. We'll see you in a bit." My bad boys, April writes, received prayer from Alan over a month on a regular basis. So by the time May rolled around, my so-called bad boys became the prayer team of room 26. This year, as Mick mentioned in February, we're hosting the first, we'll see, LAOC, LA Orange County Gathering of Christian Educators here at Biola. And I would so appreciate your prayers. And when we come in love, the world is usually open to us.